All right, everybody, what's going on? We have Moni Amandla joining us. Moni, I think we've done a couple live videos here in the 10-Minute Mentor group last year, but this year we're starting something new where I want to get the most recent guests to the 10-Minute Mentor podcast back in the group for a more intimate and personal and enjoyable conversation. As many of you know, the 10-Minute Mentor podcast is kind of designed to, bring in these experts, give them a platform to share their expertise, but in a very clear and concise manner and within a 10-minute time frame. But a lot of these experts have a lot of great things to deliver. They have a lot of cool stories and knowledge, and we really can't confine that to just 10 minutes. So we brought Moni right here into the Facebook group, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the G4 method and what Moni has going on in her world. So Moni, thank you so much for being here. Entrepreneur extraordinaire, serial entrepreneur, author, speaker, multi business owner, and all around amazing woman. How are you, my friend?
I'm so awesome. Thank you so much for having me. That was so good. I had to dance a little bit too. Remember that dance back in the day? Hey.
I hear you.
I'm so happy to be here with you again. Like, how long has it been? It's been a year about, huh? Since we've been on video together last.
Yeah, it's definitely been. I know that you've been a busy girl. We got some folks in here. Lawrence is in here. David Norris is in here. Looks
Hi,
like
David. Hi, Lawrence.
Denise Griffiths is hopping in,
Denise.
and
Hi, everybody.
probably the office mates probably in the background somewhere. But
Hmm.
Moni, so what's going on? And then we'll jump into the G4 method and really give them some good stuff that maybe we didn't have time for on the podcast 2 weeks
What's
ago.
going on? Wow, that's such a loaded question because in my world, there's always a lot going on, right? So, doing some really great things with my company Bellativa. We're preparing for some relaunches and partnering up internationally to expand what we're doing. We
Hmm.
are, I've got a book that I'm writing that, of course, I shared with you called Indomitable,
Hmm.
about having an unconquerable spirit.
Hmm.
And it's just been really a fun journey. So this is really great.
Awesome. So you want to jump right into the G4 method? I know that we talked a lot about it
Hmm.
the podcast, but for those that maybe missed the podcast or those that just really want that quick refresher, give us the basics of the G4 method, and then we'll hop into
Hmm.
full discussion and Q&A. And if anybody has any questions, throw those in the comments down below on Facebook, and we'll get to those as well.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So, first and foremost, I want to really kind of emphasize how oftentimes it's the simple things, very simple things, that actually can have a really major impact, right, in our lives. And so, this method for really overcoming and getting over things and breaking through what we perceive as barriers or obstacles or traumas, this is what was given to me to really help through a recent trauma that took place in our home in December. So, for those of you who may not know what happened, we actually experienced the shock of a home invasion. And that home invasion, in that home invasion, much of things in my home were destroyed. My son was shot in fighting off the gunman, and I had a very, very, very difficult time really re-engaging in life, because when things like that happen, you can kind of get stuck, in trying to, process and figure out. And that's what happened to me. And so I was really trying to figure out, like, okay, how do I move past this? How do I breathe through it? How do I, get back up again and put one foot in front of the other? And when I looked over the course of my life, there's always been something that I've had to overcome. I thought about it. I said, it's almost like being a mountain climber where, it's like one mountain after another. It's like, okay, I can climb this one. And then of course there's the next big one, and then there's the next big one. And of course this past one, but this past one was more difficult because of the amount of trauma that was associated with it. And it doesn't have to be something as dramatic as what I faced. In our home, it can be things like divorce, which can cripple people, especially if they're entrepreneurs, because you're not just showing up for work and you can't just go and be, a zombie doing your normal thing, right? Because you're responsible for everything that your business does. And so it can be whether it is a job loss, whether it doesn't really matter. We all face something that we have to overcome. And so it was one day, it just really came to me. And I really can't explain it. I just began to write. And I wrote down these 4 things. And that's why I just called it G4, because I thought it was something kind of cool. I didn't know what to call it, but they just happened to all be G's. And so there we go. But it reminds me somewhat, I don't know if you've ever heard of Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. And, where she just counts backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It seems very simple, but psychologically, it does something for you. And so the first G in the G4 method is grace. So let me just tell you what they are. So it's grace, gladness, gratitude, and grit. Okay. So grace being the first thing that I had to do, because I have to rely on a power that's greater than I. Everyone has their own relationship with what we call God, because, it's really truly the force that creates all of us is really a mystery to most people, right? We feel like we have it, on lock. But when we realize that there is a beautiful presence, a beautiful creative presence that is protective, that is empowering, being able to rely on that instead of relying on our own mind and our own will and our own emotions, just realizing that, in the world beyond the world that we see, there's a massive amount of support, out there for us. And so, really being able to lean on the grace, that unmerited favor to really uplift us no matter what. It really brought me a lot of peace, right? And so that was the G. Number 1 was grace. Gladness was being able to find that uncommon joy. It's not common to be able to smile again after something like that, especially as recently as it happened. I mean, it's only been, a couple of months ago now. And, but to be able to find those things and tap into, what is it that I can be glad about, right? What is it that I can, find to be happy about again? The truth of the matter is I could have stayed there in that space. And, because when it first happened, Rich, I tell you, I was waking up every 10 to 15 minutes, shaking, crying, feeling like I saw the gunman's face coming into my room again. And I could have stayed in that, because it was very, very easy to lock into fear. The brain is a really strange thing. It'll play, even though, it's not happening in the present moment, it can play something over and over and over again, and you will experience it as if you've experienced it right now. And so instead of tapping into the trauma part, I tapped into other things. I'm like, if I can feel this and still see this over and over again, then I can see the other things that used to bring me joy or make me happy, even if I don't see it in the present moment. So I had to go and take those same memories and bring that, not just the thought of them, but also the emotion, so that I can process and be able to move through. So that was that next part. The next one was gratitude. What can I be thankful for? And initially I was pissed off. I was really, really infuriated. If I could have hurt someone, I would have. And that's just being very transparent, because it's like when you feel like your power has been taken away from you, when you feel like, you couldn't fight back to the degree that you wanted to, because they were punks and they had guns. There was just I was angry, right? But then I'm like, okay, I can sit here and be angry that this happened. I can be angry at the loss. I could be angry because I'm looking at my child hurting, bleeding. I can be angry because I'm having to deal with detectives. Or I can say, you know what, we're alive. That it didn't have to be that way. We made it. It didn't have to be that way. And so finding the things to be grateful for, instead of taking the trauma and staying in that, was huge, 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 huge for me. And I still do that to this day. Like even moments like this, being able to sit with you and Lawrence and Denise and David and whomever else has joined us, it's a moment of gratitude, because I don't have to be here. When I was upstairs and I had ran Rich, it was so crazy because when I heard someone coming up the stairs, I thought that they were coming to kill me. I did not know if my son was dead. I didn't know if my friends who were here were dead after so many gunshots. And so to hear my son's voice, I'm like, I can be grateful that it was his voice and not, not them. Right. So all of the things, that I can hug my children again. I can live to be in my business again. I can see my nephews and my nieces again. Life is just so much sweeter when you realize that you can be grateful no matter what we perceive as negative, happen to us. And I think the beauty in that, because, there's beauty for ashes. When we look at, if we look at the scriptures, that's what it talks about, having beauty for ashes. We can look at all the things that are, look like they are destroyed, but there's beauty in it. The beauty is that I love deeper. I don't take my connections for granted like I used to. I didn't even know that I did. Right. You know how we kind of get busy, especially as entrepreneurs, we get all in our busyness because we're trying to be successful. But sometimes, in this situation, I don't even measure success in the same way. Sometimes a successful day is a day where I'm just at peace. I'm enjoying just the fact that I can inhale and I can exhale. And so just watching the fact that success can be redefined, at any moment, doesn't mean that I'm not going to be, I'm not going to blow up because your girl is. I'm just saying. I was just saying. So the next one. So we've got grace, gladness, gratitude. The last one is grit. And grit is about having courage and resolve to get back up. I tell you, sometimes, I've seen people do this with love, especially if they've had a heartbreak. They don't want to go back they don't want to date again. They don't want to, experience that again because they, sometimes, relationships can really take people through the ringer. But they've done the same thing with business. If they've had a business failure, they may not want to get back up and get into it again, because sometimes you've got to fight, for the life that you want. It's not just going to come to you, right? Just because you want it to, or just because you're brilliant, or just because you have an amazing idea. It doesn't work that way. And so having that grittiness about you and having that courage and that resolve to fight another day and to not quit until you win, I think makes all the difference in the world. So there you have it, my G4 method for getting through that: grace, gladness, gratitude, and grit.
Awesome. So my first question, and people that are in here, that if you're watching it live, feel free, if you have any questions for Moni, fire those down in the comments. If you are watching this tomorrow on the replay, throw those comments in there too, because Moni's in the group, I'm in the group. If she doesn't see it, I will bring her attention to it, and we'll get those questions answered. But if you have a question for us right now in real time, drop that in there, and we'll address that. But my first question, Moni, it sounds like when you were, I want to say developing, but maybe you were doing it unconsciously, because it sounds like you were trying to really help yourself and relieve those negative emotions and that very traumatic experience. And you were in that survival mode of, what do I need to do to get myself out of this mental and emotional space? So, you were just doing whatever was possible for you to live and to breathe and,
For sure.
and to really operate. But
Yeah, for sure.
what I want to know is, at what point did it go from, okay, this is something that I need to do in order to be a productive member of society and regain my footing in my life? When did it transfer from that to, hey, you know what? There might be other people that could benefit from this. And I shouldn't be so, and I'll say the word selfish, but this isn't something that only I can benefit from. This is something that, was it something like very early on, because you're an entrepreneur, you're a speaker, you're a coach? Was it something early on, you're like, yeah, shit, like while I'm doing this, I might as well really define this and help more people? Or was it more of like, yo, I'm just going to focus on me right now, get this going. And then at some point you were like, hey, wait a second, this is going to be great for other people who have undergone some form of trauma in whatever way that they feel trauma.
Sure.
So at what point was that light bulb go off and you're like, yeah, I need to share this with other people?
That's such a great question. And you don't even know this, but this actually happened. I'd actually had this written on my board because it came to me. I was praying. And I'm like, okay, I've got to get out of this because I'm like, I'm couch locked, I'm bed locked, I don't want to move. I'm like, it was just, I was losing myself. I was losing my will. I was just losing myself. And it was when you reached out about me coming on the podcast. And I'm like, what am I going to talk about? And it was just like, ding, 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 ding. Hello. Right. So it really happened then. And I don't know if you remember how nervous I was to even share this. I was on your podcast and I'm like, I don't really get nervous about things like that. But I'm like, my heart is pounding. I'm like, you know what I mean? I was like, my palms were sweating. And I'm like, why am I feeling like this? But it was the first time that I've actually shared something that was so intimately personal to me. And I thought to myself, you know what? And I felt like it was a spiritual and divine moment for you to reach out and say, will you come onto the podcast? I knew in that moment, I'm like, this is it. I can't just talk about, okay, I've got these great products in this company, because it's so much bigger than that. Like, we're all going through something. Like, everybody is going through something, it really doesn't matter. I mean, every day, if you're an entrepreneur, there's a challenge, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's not just a business challenge. We have lives, and we're, human beings having a very human experience. And so it was in that moment, I'm like, you know what, let me be brave, and you actually gave me my moment of being able to be brave again and to speak out again and to say, you know what, let's share this, because I know that I'm not the only one, and maybe somebody, is going through something and really needs a way that they can rechannel and refocus and shift their perspective and get back into the business of life.
Awesome. And I'm curious, like, what has the reception been as you're slowly sharing this with more people than just your core intimate group? Because it's one thing to share a life experience like this with a buddy or a sister
Yeah.
or a family member, but I mean, now as you're going onto podcasts, now as you're even publicizing the fact that you're writing this book, and someone's going to say, well, what's the book about? And you've got to share this. So what's the reception been, and how has it maybe influenced you, impacted you in some way, shape, or form?
It's been positive, but I always wonder, like, is it because they love me? You know what I mean? Because people, when they find you, I'm like, people will say, oh wow, that was great. But I really do think that it's been helpful, to people, because a lot of times we make, things so complicated, and it's really not that complicated. It's just, are we willing to shift, right? And so I was willing, and I had to first be willing, and I had to first say, you know what, I can't stay in this space, because if I stay in this space, it's going to swallow me up. And so now, in terms of the motivation, I'm still, and you can probably notice I'm kind of moving my hands a lot. I'm having to focus on just being still. It's definitely motivated me. So I want to thank you for that. I mean, it's definitely got me thinking, like, I can do this. I can do this. I can get back out here. I can breathe through it. And, everything that we go through, right? I don't think it's just for us, the good and the bad. A lot of times people only want to share their traumas, but I mean, even the things that, we celebrate or that we are overcoming, I mean, we're all in this thing together. And so from that perspective, it's very motivating, because in everything that I do, my heart is always to be helpful. And, and if I can provide any tool, big or small, for people, that's hugely motivating. And I'm looking forward to, sharing it again. I was so nervous, because I'm like, well, would that be helpful for people? But it was so impactful for me. I mean, I'm telling you, right before we did that podcast, there's no way, I had, I've got a social people that help me with my social media, people, well, are you always on it? No, it's not always me. Sometimes I'm like, listen, let everybody know I'm not dead. I'm still alive. I'm here. But I needed to just decompress. And it's just made such a huge impact in terms of me getting back and like just saying, you know what, I can do this. I did a public speaking engagement. That was like, I'm looking over my shoulder, because when you experience some things, you're just you can become kind of shy a little bit, like, but it's been great. Like, just seeing that people are open, to hearing, how something so simple can be so profound and rewiring your brain and giving you a renewed experience.
Awesome. And I know Lawrence had a really good comment that he dropped in Facebook, and he said, when the focus becomes bigger than just us, then it's easier to manage our own personal problems or issues. And that's,
Sure. Yeah.
a great point, Lawrence. Thank you, my man, for
Yeah.
sharing it. So, and I'm curious, just curious, is there a timeline for the book? Are you going through like the sloppy copy phase, the mind mapping and all that stuff? Like,
Yeah. I'm definitely in the sloppy copy mind mapping phase
sloppy
of
copies?
Indomitable.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure. That book is really not just about this past experience. It actually came because I wish I could remember who it was, because, some of the visitors that I received, I just honestly, during that moment, I don't remember everyone that was there, but there was someone who had kind of came to my house and they were sitting next to me. And they said, Moni, looking at your life from childhood, to burying your children, to, being the child of an incarcerated parent, to, over and over and over again, all these things. And he said, you're truly indomitable.
Mhm.
And I had to go look it up. I'm like, indomitable. I'm like, but then when it talked about being unconquerable, like the unconquerable spirit, like one thing I can say about me is I'll bend, but I'm not going to break. Right. I might take a knee, but I can guarantee you that I will eventually get back up. I just have this thing like within me, like this fighter, you know what I mean? Within me, like, nah, F that. I'm getting up. You know what I mean? So, so in that, I'm just trying to figure out like where to begin, because I don't want it to be a sob story. I want people to see hope when they see me, right? I don't want them to see, oh my gosh, she's had all this trauma, she's had all these things. I want them to see that I don't give a damn what has happened. You can rise again, period. Not in a cliche way, but you can get up. Like, you can get up. You're still here. And so that's what's so important for me to share with people, and especially in Indomitable, and giving them tools on becoming indomitable, because live long enough, some shit's going to happen. Oops. I mean, some stuff's going to happen. Sorry, guys.
No problem. I think I cursed before anyway.
But you get what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Live long enough,
Absolutely. And, and we've talked about it countless times. I know you and I have brought it up in other videos, and Lawrence and I have brought it up, and, but a lot of people have this misconception that because someone is in the spotlight, or they're an entrepreneur, or they're successful in some arena, that they just got there and that nothing bad goes wrong for them. And, it's that the iceberg visual is, listen, like, there's tons of stuff that has gone on. Just because the person maybe isn't broadcasting it, or not turning their social media timeline into a bitch fest or anything like that, complaining every day. But these are like common issues that people are dealing with. And some very good people have to deal with very unfortunate, traumatic experiences like you experienced. And how does one navigate that situation? How does one pick themselves up from the ashes there? So it's great that you're not only sharing your story, but you're also giving them little actionable items, like, hey man, like, if you want to pick yourself up, like, I believe in you. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And by the way, here's some cool tips and tricks and tools you can utilize, because I want to see you rise back up.
Listen, that's what it's all about. That is what it's all about, man. I mean, it is what it is, and it may not be, and I don't want people to think like, oh, just because what I was sharing was so traumatic. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, right? Big or small, you know what I mean? There's always some kind of a challenge. Even in financial challenges, I've seen people just be like destroyed because their finances aren't right, or their business, they're not selling and they're ready to throw in the towel on their business. It's like, you know what, maybe you just need to re-strategize. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean to quit. It doesn't mean to bow out. It just means, hey, let's, shift some things. So that's really all it's about. It's about the perspective shift. And I love what A Course in Miracles teaches, and it talks about miracles, and it says that a miracle, it defines a miracle as as a shift in perspective from fear to love, right? And so I was in deep fear, and so it's like, how do I now find love, right? Love for myself, love for my family, love for my community, love for my peers, right? How do you
Hmm.
find that? You shift, and it's a decision away.
Hmm. Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
Um, so do you have anything maybe that you wanted to address or kind of end on? Because, we did a really good job of getting into that nitty gritty. And I know that, this is one of the first few times that you've publicly shared it. So we do appreciate you trusting us and sharing your story. And, hopefully someone's watching this right now, either in real time or watching the replay later in the week, or maybe watching this 5 months from now because they found it on YouTube somewhere and they're like, oh my God, like this is the thing that I needed to see because I just went through XYZ, and I can totally relate to what Moni said. So do you have any like ending notes, any golden nuggets to really give this person that thing that they're looking for right now?
Absolutely. I think the first thing is, you know, a lot of times there are people that become addicted to their pain and their trauma. Okay, let's just be honest. The first the first step is wanting to be able to move through. It's your willingness, right? And so once you are willing to move through, once you are willing to say, you know what, fine, it happened, but I'm ready to get back into life. I believe that on the other side of this is going to be something amazing. I then invite you to take this method and really begin to meditate on it. You know, sometimes some people may need to do it, more times a day than others. But even if it's in the morning before you get started, make a decision and say, you know what? Whether you pray, whether you meditate, whatever your practice is, get centered and really think about that and really know that you are supported, that you are filled with and surrounded by, a loving force that created you. That's the first and foremost thing. And again, doing the things that I talked about earlier, finding things to be glad about, finding things to be grateful for, and then getting gritty enough to go out there and, and just taking it, taking life by the horns and really going out there and making it yours, right? We don't have to take everything that's thrown at us. It may happen, may be thrown at us, but you can take a bat and swing it right back at that thing. You absolutely can. And so I would just encourage all of you to, knock it out the park.
Awesome. And for those that have you first listened to the podcast episode, you know that in the 10-Minute Mentor podcast, we always include a 10-minute challenge. And a 10-minute challenge is something that you can do in 10 minutes each day to start experiencing those results. Okay. A lot of people, I don't have time for an hour of this or 2 hours of that. I can't Okay, 10 minutes, boom, everybody can find 10 minutes. I don't care who you are. And for those that listen to the podcast, you'll remember that Moni's 10-minute challenge was exactly what she just said about 45 seconds ago. And that was to meditate daily, to remember the G4 method and meditate on that specifically, to start bringing in those good things and remembering, what makes you glad, and having that attitude of gratitude and things like that. So if you listen to it, go back and listen to it again. If you haven't listened to it, we'll throw the link downstairs, down in the comments area. Go back and listen to it. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments area. And we're going to keep checking back on this video and help you guys out. And Moni's here, and she'll be here to further assist. Moni, I hope I didn't sign you up for anything that
Hey, it's all good. You know what? You can sign me up for anything that you want to. I've always got your back.
All right, just making
100%.
sure.
You already knew. You already knew. Yeah.
So those that want, excuse me, those that want to connect with Moni, I know that Moni, you're on Facebook, obviously. You're on LinkedIn, Instagram. You're on Twitter, all the good ones. And what we're going to do is we're going to drop her websites and social media links in the body of in the show notes up there. So whether you're watching this on Facebook, we're going to put those in there later on tonight. When you're watching this on YouTube in a couple days, once I get it there, the links to connect with Moni directly will be there as well. So you'll be able to connect with Moni across all of the social platforms, across the multiverse, and feel free to shoot her any questions. And
Absolutely.
Moni, I thank you. Thank you so much. You know, I love you, and I'm so grateful that you're on the podcast. Now you're here. Moni, do you have any parting words for the good folks?
I have a first parting word for you. Thank you for everything. And I appreciate it beyond words. Thank you for, bringing me back out here and doing what you didn't even know that you were doing because you were just being yourself. So thank you. And really, also, thank you to the community. And if there's something that I have shared that has been of benefit to you, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your comments. And that'll be so encouraging to see that something was been able to impact you. So I would love that. So connect with me.
Awesome. Definitely do that. Take her up on her offer. I know Lawrence dropped a message in there and said, thank you, Moni, for your courageousness. And I definitely share those sentiments. So thank you so much. And we'll talk to you soon. All right.
Thanks,
you enjoy
guys.
your Tuesday.
Will
Bye,
do.
everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, and be excellent. Bye-bye.